Hello beautiful people. Things are a bit rough in the gaming sphere at the moment. 2024 in general has had more layoffs and destruction of great studios than should be legally allowed. But even when the AAA gaming industry is literally eating itself alive through classic overreach and greed, indies are still going strong. And here are some more to have a look at. Also, there will be a special segment at the end for the next Indies I Look At video. So don't miss out on that. Now grab a drink, relax, and let's go. I gotta hand it to the devs. Games don't tend to induce nausea on me by doing nothing outwardly gross. But this hand, it's upsetting. Super Adventure Hand is a level-based puzzle platformer that's fun for the whole family. Or not. Complete levels by getting to the coffee cup, which is usually how I start my day, not end it. But along the way you'll find the things can get out of hand. Controls are a bit odd. It's more momentum-based movement than precision. You have sticky fingers that can latch onto any surface, sometimes to the detriment of your goal, and a jump which can sometimes be precise and other times launch you off platforms in a direction you weren't planning. It can make speedrunning a bit tricky if you want to beat the timer. The timer is a pain, by the way, not just in-game but in games in general. I don't like when a game immediately starts timing you, because I will feel pressured to make good time the first try, and keep restarting if I do poorly. I'd rather have it show up once I replay a level and just enjoy my first time at my own pace instead of being pulled by the hand. But I get how some people enjoy the immediate satisfaction of being challenged by strangers on the internet, just not me. The levels are fun if a little bland, mostly ruins, office supplies, or rocky outcrops pepper the environment. But the puzzles tend to be fun, minus the pulling of blocks, which just makes me remember the trauma of Soul Reaver. Most levels have you collect keys to open up pathways to the exit, and it can become a little tricky later on, but that's not all that hard once you solve the puzzle, and it's just such a strangely relaxing and tense experience going through them. They're on the short side too, about 5 minutes or longer if you want to keep trying to get a good time, but nothing that will keep your hands too full. There are also fumbles to collect in order to get new outfits, which helps make the gross hand feel more personable. Also, if I haven't sold the game to you yet, then how about this sweet ride?
What'd I do?
You killed the car.
Super Adventure Hand is a game for a very particular type of gamer, one who likes a challenge. If you're a streamer, I can see this being fun to stream since some of the levels will just kick you around a little bit, and people love giving a hand to a great show. Here's a little behind the scenes. Sometimes I buy games to look at and then just sit on them for months. I waited so long to play Intravenous that I played the sequels demo before this. I am not great at time management, but I finally sat down and tried it out, and it's good. I've talked a few times about how much I love stealth games, but I'm also terrible at them. And Intravenous is stealth taken to the extreme. It's something else that just came out of nowhere. The story is your typical revenge thriller, a bunch of drug addicts murder your brother by accident, and now it's time for, you guessed it, John Wicken. I won't go into deeper plot, but as with any good action movie, complications arise. You pick a loadout before every mission and proceed to sneak in and take out a particular target. And let me tell you, this game is hard. Very hard. But that shouldn't be a turnoff because Intravenous refuses to hold your hand. You have to fail, and fail some more to learn the ins and outs because there is no other way. It's like teaching someone math, but then you sneak behind them and choke them out. You have various speeds to walk at, all controlled with the mouse wheel, and depending on which surface you get on, it could mean being found out. Your view is a cone, based on your vision, much like the underappreciated classic, Nox. And enemies here have no chill. They are awake and alert, like a redditor waiting to spot continuity flaws in a film. And they converge fast, and will kill you even faster. I don't think I got away once after being seen, but that just meant trying again for me. And once I learned to take it slow, commit to a route, turn off those damn lights, and not open doors close to anyone, I got far, and I had a blast. That's how I play these games, like a pacifist. Though trying to choke out people is more difficult than it should be. Sometimes the button doesn't register and I just end up punching people to sleep. Still works. But if the stealth option doesn't fit you, how about becoming the Punisher? That's an option too. A good stealth game in my opinion gives me options, and the levels in Intravenous are open to many different routes, and I like trying them out, going through windows or jumping over walls to a safe spot. Not to mention, while a bit dark, they look great. The pixel style really does sell the gritty atmosphere of the story and helps immerse you in this filthy, grimy world. Though the portraits that are clearly celebs traced over is distracting. Intravenous is a tight and compacted stealth game that does a wonderful job at making you feel like Sam Fisher on a bad day. It's about taking your time and learning the ins and outs of a level, or if you get impatient, just start tranking everyone. That works. Check it out if you like a challenge, and then try out the demo for number 2, which should be coming out soon, I hear. I love my retro survival horrors, and Crow Country is taking huge inspirations from PS1 classics. It's the illegitimate child of Resident Evil 2 and Final Fantasy VII, starring a main character who has the kneel of someone trying to get TikTok famous. I love this game. A year ago when I tried out the demo, I knew it was going to be a good time once it's released. And it didn't disappoint. You play Mara Forrest, an investigator sent to Crow Country, a wonderful theme park, to find its enigmatic owner, Edward Crow, who has gone missing from the spotlight, instead becoming a recluse living in his own park. Explore the park and unlock the secrets behind the strange creatures roaming about, and an international mystery involving gold! I know a few people might be put off by the description and think, wow, another mascot horror game. That's such a unique idea. But hear me out, it's not like those, instead taking place in an interesting environment with strange and compelling creatures to either fight or run away from. The theme park isn't just a setting for the game to take place in. The theme park is the game. It embraces the setting. The game looks fantastic, level design evokes the amazing pre-rendered backgrounds of PS1 classics, and combined with the soundtrack, makes it a 10 out of 10. If the game was just exploring the theme park, solving puzzles and uncovering the story, it would have been enough for me. But sadly, they had to add a little more. The game's combat is a bit lackluster, and not in the way you think. While the puzzle solving and exploration are the game's strongest elements, the combat feels like filler. There's a nice variety of enemies, and the game unleashes them at good intervals, so you don't get too familiar with seeing the same ones, but fighting them is too easy. They are incredibly slow, minus the goblins, and you have too many good options to defend yourself. Your pistol has great range, does decent damage, and it's easy to aim. Not to mention, you pick up ammo for it all the time. The trash cans are filled with everything you need, and you will keep stocking up faster than you can use it. In more difficult cases, you have a grenade that instantly kills any group of enemies, so there isn't much of a challenge. While playing, I didn't die once. I shot who I needed to, and everyone else, I just ran past. The game has the same level of tension as walking down the hallway from here to my refrigerator, but luckily, that's all offset with the wonderful atmosphere. Crow Country really works as a puzzle horror more than a survival one. The puzzles never reach brain-scratching lengths, instead being logic-based and will often leave you with a aha moment before you solve it. The game has a great flow to it. You're always unlocking doors to new areas which fit the aesthetic of the theme park to a T, from the underwater kingdom, fairy forest, to my favorite, the spooky mansion. All great places to visit. One of them has the greatest jump scare I've experienced in a long time. But if all that starts to get boring, just shoot some hoops. The fact that the game looks pre-rendered but the camera is able to rotate means you have to do some pixel hunting, since unlike the RE games it's imitating, the camera isn't designed to point you in the direction of items you need. I like this design, because it shows the lengths gone into designing each area, and how lived in they feel. But while fighting enemies is easy and the puzzles are interesting, the game does provide one roadblock to all this that puts a steel rod in your spokes. Traps. There are so many traps, and they just keep increasing incrementally as you play. It starts with the bear trap, which you can trick enemies into as well. Then the glob of poison that explodes, a crow head that spits at you, and finally, my favorite, the chandelier. It's a weird way for the game to slow you down, as you need to stop and shoot at them, and they are often placed in areas you need to backtrack to, but at least they add a little spice to the challenge. Later on though, it's a little too salty. Just as I was about to finish this video, Crow Country got a nice update. Hard mode. It addresses a lot of the problems I brought up and makes the game more tense. Enemies are more aggressive and supplies are scarce, but not by a lot. This isn't impossible mode, it's what difficulty the game should have been, and it's a lot more fun. You can still swerve around enemies and pick your battles, but they converge on you faster and force you to react before completely overwhelming you. Now your arsenal feels less like overkill and more a necessary evil to survive. The game isn't very long, about 4 hours plus, but well worth the time to play it. The mark of a good horror is always how it sticks with you, and the atmosphere here is memorable. And I kept thinking about it days after. It's a great little game you can get invested in over a rainy weekend, or play during Halloween. Crow Country is a gem, and quite a standout for the year, proving that all genres are still viable, even today. Also, did I mention the Crow gun? When I started this channel, I decided to keep my focus tight since there are so many indie games and I didn't want to overwhelm myself. GenoPanic by Mobiurate was the kind of game that was just at my periphery, but then I got sent a key and decided to give it a thorough look. And it surprised me. Full disclosure, I got sent a free key by the devs, but that doesn't influence my opinion. GenoPanic is a Metroidvania about exploring a space station being overwhelmed by a strange dark matter in order to collect GMOs. This game's version of Pokemon. Now that sounds like a cool concept, but it's really not expanded on much, and even though you find tons of logs to read, it never really grabs you. It's mostly just jokes or memes, the kind of stuff that felt out of date last year. Unless you like big-chested cat girls, then maybe it's for you. Maybe. Instead, the real draw here is the gameplay. The developers describe GenoPanic as a not Metroidvania, and that's a correct description because the game feels like a Metroidvania with a big connected world to explore, but it's far more linear than most. There is some backtracking, but you'll never find yourself confused about where to go. Every few minutes you unlock a new weapon or item to help you progress, and the way the game leads you to a new area is really well done and means the game has some wonderful pacing. The game is focused on great platforming. Every screen or level you enter has a new root puzzle you have to solve to progress, and while they start off pretty simple, they can get quite intense later on. In order to help you with this, you'll later unlock a jetpack to float, and magnetic boots to double jump, which gives you some room to fix a bad angle. Your weapons are also used for progression. Most notably, the flamethrower clears out any spiderwebs in your way, and you get the sword for cutting down bubbles. There are save machines in almost every room since a lot of the puzzles have instant death traps, so even if you fail, expect to just immediately get back up again. There are exceptions when you need to progress through multiple areas on one life, and those can be pretty challenging. The jumping and general feel of the controls are very tight, making it less the game fighting you to get further and more a skill issue. Damn it! Let's talk about the biggest flaw and most baffling decision of the game, the disintegrating ground. In most areas you'll find the floor or walls breaking apart to reveal passages and routes you need to take. Sorry, I don't mean often, I mean mostly. The game relies on this too much, which means a lot of wall hugging and jumping to find stable ground. There are indicators to where collapsible ground can be, but even then, sometimes it's just hidden, and the game will often have you fall down in rooms and have to find a way back up. It's weird, because there are a lot of levels that don't rely on this, that are still incredibly fun, and some where it's just obscuring a route the game is already heavily pointing you towards. If this had been scaled back, it would have been a pretty interesting idea, but because it's so prevalent, it just becomes annoying and unnecessary. The combat and boss battles are also on the weak side. You have a gun and sword, but usually when you hit an enemy, they just get stun locked, so there's no real challenge, and you can easily trap bosses in their own patterns. Some enemies require certain weapons, but it's never implemented in a way where it's much of a challenge. There is one area where you have to avoid spiders because you don't have the flamethrower to kill them yet, which I really enjoyed and wish the game had more of. The game would have been better if it had just removed the combat, instead focusing on the platforming and level exploration. And the levels look great too. Even the darkest rooms have this vibrant tone to them that makes the world feel alien. I like GenoPanic. It's not great, but it's fun to play, and I wish more Metroidvanias took this approach. Connecting levels in a way where you didn't spend half your time backtracking and wondering where you needed to go. But GenoPanic made me realize there's still some fun to be had here. Do you enjoy going around at the speed of sound? Got places to go? Do you also enjoy a slow, contemplative narrative about trauma and the sometimes misguided ideal of doing the right thing? Then Solar Ash is for you. Even though I love gaming, my finger tends to be far from the pulse. One thing I'm sad about missing out on was Hyperlight Drifter. I knew about it, but never gave it a shot. But the developer of that trippy game went ahead and created another gem. Solar Ash, the love child of Sonic the Hedgehog and Shadow the Colossus. And it's a wonderful mess. You play Ray, a Void Runner sent to save her planet from falling into the Ultra Void, a black hole-like entity that traps worlds in its powerful pull, destroying them. Along the way you have to defeat remnants to activate the Star Seed, the only thing capable of saving your planet. The story is told through cutscenes as you progress through the various worlds caught in the Ultra Void and find some characters who have suffered greatly from the fall of their worlds. It's that same defeated attitude of broken worlds that Dark Souls has, but colorful, and with a twinge of hope attached, for what little that counts. The gameplay is pretty simple. Run, grind, grapple, and slash your way through levels to find these focal points in order to wake up the remnant for battle. Controls feel perfect, you will be moving with the best of them in no time. There's a short tutorial in the beginning, but once you are let loose, it just feels incredible surfing over clouds, jumping between platforms, and grappling over larger gaps. Mixed with the visuals, I was instantly hooked and enjoyed exploring these worlds throughout the whole playthrough. The levels are all open-ended on how you approach. You can use your radar to find out where the focal point is, but getting there is up to you. Most times it has a single route, but that still requires some exploration and experimenting. And once there, you have to solve the puzzle of how to take out the points. This requires you to hit these markers in order, and that can either take you a minute to a few more in order to figure it out. Along the way, you'll find enemies to fight, but they just require a few slashes to get rid of and won't get much in your way. Later levels can require a bit more strategy to take them down. It can have you racing across multiple areas to make sure the timer doesn't run out, but it never gets old. The highlight here is the remnants, and finding them is an experience. You don't just climb on them, you run and glide all over their giant bodies. You have a time limit to hit the markers like with the focal points, and then you hit them in their weak spot. Repeat this 3 times and you're done, but easier said than done. The sequence is always the same, but in the 3rd round, certain parts of their body become dangerous, and touching them once will count as a fail, and you have to do that section all over again. It's incredibly tense trying to learn the patterns and race as fast as you can, but also very satisfying to get it right. There's an incredible visual reward once you defeat a remnant, as the screen explodes with color and you find yourself in another world. After every remnant, you talk to the acerbic Echo, an entity trapped in a sort of limbo space. But after meeting her every time, she always takes away 1 pip of your health. Which is annoying, but if you keep collecting these glowing orbs, you can buy it back. I don't really understand the point of this because getting hit once on the remnants will have you teleport off, regardless of how much health you have. It's more for when you fight normal enemies or deal with environmental puzzles later, but why make me keep buying it back? It's such an odd choice here. Wait, I just got it. Oh, that's clever. With all this gushing out of the way, we have to talk about the negative. The camera. Specifically during the remnant fights. It just whips around, making you a little disorientated. It means that sometimes the death can be attributed to the camera instead of you. And since the movement is momentum based, adjusting speed if you under or overshoot a jump due to the camera can mean losing all momentum. It could have been solved by adding an air dash instead of the double jump, because there were a few times I felt like I just needed it. But the camera can be a real problem on some of the bosses. Most notably the final boss, which I won't spoil, but it was just this amazing culmination of the story. Emotions were high, I was ready to do what was needed, and I kept dying because the camera kept whipping in the wrong direction. Took some of the wind out of the finale. Solar Ash is more than just a gem. It's a classic. It's something everyone should try. The speed and fluidity of the movement will have you enraptured from the beginning. It also does something I wish all indies would look at. It has incredible pacing. It wastes no time in letting you have fun and explore. and therefore create memorable moments. Check it out. It's only about 6 hours long, but well worth the experience. Another video done, and more great gems brought to the light. For the next video though, I plan on doing something different. You get to tell me what to look at. All suggestions will be put in a big pile, and free choices will be picked at random. So please, comment below and recommend me an indie. And even if I don't pick it, I still like you. I just don't love you. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.